Hare Krishna. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Hare Krishna. So today, on the Transcendental Appearance Day of Lord Nityananda, this very blissful day, we are trying to get absorbed. And as much as on this day we can just spend about glorifying, hearing, remembering Lord Nityananda and serving Lord Nityananda, the more Lord Nityananda will be manifest to us. Yeah, thank you. Super good. Oh, yeah, thank you also. Hare Krishna. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodita Godadaya Puspavanto Chitro Sandetamonada. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Surya Samaya Haya Andakar Yahaita Krishna Tai Naya Mayar Adhikar. Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. And wherever there is Krishna, Maya cannot be present. So in this way, Krishna is compared to the sun. And of course, Nitai Padakamala Koti Chandra Shushitala. Nitai Padakamala, the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Oh. Kuti, millions of moon. Kuti Chandra, Sushitala. Sita, we know, is winter. So Susitala, are cooling, very cooling. So the blazing forest fire of material existence, Sansara Dhavanala Lidaloka, this Dhavanala, this blazing forest fire, that is the problem. And it's been raging out of control for a long time. And we have just been driven by it, not been able to control the senses and to control the mind. And then the mercy of Lord Nityananda is just cooling down this blazing fire of lust, of anger, of envy, of all material qualities. So, Dibanisahiya Jwala, that which burns day and night. So, somehow or other, by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, we came in touch with this transcendental knowledge. We had no idea about Krishna, no idea about Bhagavad Gita. And even if somehow or other we had stumbled over Bhagavad Gita, even if we would have gone to India and seen a little bit of Krishna, maybe bought a souvenir, like a box with Kaliya Krishna on it, or something like that. Even then, right? What did we know about Krishna? What did we know what it meant? And then, Bhagavatam, definitely not. That is, nobody knew about Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, who had heard? Who knew such things? But Lord Nityananda, he was along with Haridas Thakur, started the original Sankirtan party on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Nityananda was, even while Vishwambar was still a Grihastha in Navadvip before taking sannyas, right? But after he had revealed his identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then, then Nityananda and Haridas went out chanting the holy name. Chanting was going on everywhere. That was the problem. We remember the Chandkazi had to deal with that. So many complaints came, it's everywhere. They're chanting all over the place. And Chandkazi was forced to do something, but that backfired. So, literally, it set his house on fire. So, what to do? But the Lord Nityananda, Jagai, Madai, or Jagadananda and Madhavananda Bandhupadhyay were from a respectable Brahmin family. I mean, they had everything. They had learning. They had the upbringing. They had everything. But then they just became totally degraded. But not even degraded. It was more than degraded. They became unlimitedly cruel. Not only did they fall down to low sensual behavior, not only did they become totally intoxicated and drunk and whatnot, they killed, they raped, they burned houses with people inside. No one dared to say anything. No one. No one. Police was always bribed. So that was taken care of. They were rich. They were not poor. They had stolen so much wealth. So we hear how these two brothers were in the streets, but they also possessed wealth. They had influence, they had power. But they were drunk in the street. And so that is when Nityananda and Haridas saw them. So Nityananda approached these brothers. But even before they could get close, they went wild and they immediately chased them. And yes, Nityananda and Haridas Thakur had to run for their life. For their life they had to run. Yes. And Haridas was complaining. I said, this Nityananda is always getting me in trouble. He's always getting me in trouble. We go into some village and he just suddenly takes off all his clothes. I mean, then the villagers, they get very upset. Other times he just gets into the mood of a cowherd boy and he just goes and drinks milk straight from the cows. The villagers come with sticks and chase us. And I'm an old man, he goes, and we have to run and they catch me. I get in trouble. Right? It's like this. He said, and today we're going to die and I am no longer, if I survive this, I swear you, I'll never go out with Nityananda again. But because the two brothers were drunk and because the two brothers couldn't walk in a straight line, Nityananda and Haridas went around this corner, that corner, and they lost the two brothers. And made it in the evening to report to Lord Chaitanya. And they told Lord Chaitanya about the Sankirtan activities of the day, full of excitement. Today we met these people. Oh, they were totally fallen. They were just so out of it, incredible. And somehow we wanted to approach them, but even before we could approach them, they attacked us. Yes. And Haridas explained the whole story, and Lord Chaitanya said, but they got the association of Lord Nityananda, and I'm sure that soon they'll be delivered. And yes, and everyone was ecstatic, including Haridas. And the next day they went out again, and sure enough, Nityananda went straight for those brothers. He went to find them now, and he looked for them now, and he just went right up to them and told them, chant. They had a pot, Mother had a pot with wine. Right? So chant, you know what I mean? You know who you're talking to. Bang! Right? Straight on the head. There you go. We're not messing around here. And of course, the sharp edge of the clay pot cut the head of Lord Nityananda, and blood was streaming, gushing out, because he cut there on the head. A lot of blood comes out. I have some experience. So it's quite some bleeding from the head. So Nityananda was really bleeding. But Nityananda never considered that. He just simply turned to them again and said, no, chant. Then I was really like, now it's too much, you know what I mean? Now it's too much. But then Jagai stopped him and said, no, these people actually, they sing very nice. They actually sing very nice, You shouldn't beat them like that. And then they start beating each other. So that solved, for a few moments, that solved the problem. The next moment, Lord Chaitanya appeared. He was there. In total rage, Sudarshan Chakra raised, ready to go. Then Nityananda said, no. In this incarnation, you have not come to kill the demons. In this incarnation, you have come to deliver the most fallen. If you kill them, then... So then Lord Chaitanya didn't kill them, right? And then, but he was still shaking and still ready, and holding back his anger, Then Nityananda saw that and he said, but Jagai saved me from Madai. Oh, Lord Chaitanya's mood changed completely. Oh, Jagai, Jagai, come. Jagai sort of, huh? Next moment, Jagai was embraced, and tidal waves of love of God were just like overwhelming him. And all the sinful reactions of Jagai were just absorbed in the body of Lord Chaitanya, who turned blackish and for a moment looked like Krishna. And Jagai's hair stood on end, and Jagai started jumping on the spot, and Jagai is like just totally beyond himself. And Mada is looking at like, Jagi? What's going on? I mean, I've never seen this. And then he said, but, we did everything together. What he did, I did, and what I did, he did also. So I should also get what he got. Lord Chaitanya said, I'll never give you love of God. You will have to suffer birth after birth, millions of births. You'll have to suffer. Chaitanya said, no, but it can't be like that. There must be some solution. There is no solution, but only one solution. Okay. What is that solution? You fall at the feet of Nityananda, and if he forgives you, if he wants to forgive you, then you can get the mercy. Immediately, Madai threw himself at the feet of Nityananda. Nityananda just picked him up, embraced him. And then the same thing, Nityananda went a bit more dark and absorbed all the sinful reactions of Madai. And then Madai also, hair standing on end, jumping up and down in total ecstasy. And then both brothers, then Lord Chaitanya instructed them, and sin no more. Right? And then he instructed both these brothers to start to make a bathing ghat. It was Nityananda who instructed. Make a bathing ghat. And then any of the pilgrims that come to that ghat, you wash their feet. In this way, you can be delivered from all these reactions, because actually they had asked. But now I've fallen at the feet of Nityananda to be purified from offenses that I committed to him. But we've committed so many offenses to so many people unknowingly. We didn't know, and we don't even know them, I mean, no idea who we offended or not. We were drunk anyway. Who remembers all these things? Right? What you do when you're drunk. Right? Yes. I know about those things. What can we say? What can we say? But somehow or other, they said, how will we be delivered from this? You make this ghat. You wash these feet of all these pilgrims. And that will deliver you from all the offenses you've committed unknowingly. And so they did. But after some time, Madai came, and Madai was still not satisfied. Still not satisfied. Madai was still disturbed. He came before Nityananda, and Madai said, I know. Nityananda said, why are you still disturbed? I have forgiven you. Madai said, I know you have forgiven me, I know. But I can't forgive myself. Nityananda said, my dear Madai, listen, when a child hits his father doesn't take that very serious. It's just the child said, from my perspective, Mother, you are just a child. So it helped a bit. It helped Madai to get over his guilt feelings as well. So in this way, the brothers moved forward. And Lord Nityananda is therefore more merciful than Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya was ready to kill them. But Lord Nityananda said, no, we must deliver them. We must. So Lord Nityananda is more merciful and reaches out to the most fallen. He reached out to Jagai and Madai. There were no sinners like Jagai and Madai. There were no such sinners. Nowhere. It is said that Yamaraj has an assistant who's named Chitragupta, and he's the scribe. He keeps the records. And then he has many messengers. So the messengers were running up and down to bring information of the latest sins. Then the assistants of Chitragupta were writing it all down. The messengers felt exhausted by the wayside. The scribes got cramp in their hands from all the writing. Chitragupta didn't know where to store all the files. It's just too much. And how to keep so much information is just too much. And then all of that was written off in one moment. And this huge mountain of sinful records that Chitragupta was keeping could just be thrown into the ocean. And Yamaraj was in ecstasy. He fell in ecstasy in his chariot. He was lying unconscious in his chariot, just meditating on it. And all the demigods were just amazed to see Yamaraj in such ecstasy. And they all came and they all had ecstatic kirtan, and that revived Yamaraj. And in this way we can see how the pastimes of Lord Nityananda took place. So Lord Nityananda is more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. Then Srila Prabhupada explains, he said, at that time there was one Jagai and one Madai, he said. He said, but now the entire population has become like Jagai and Madai. Everyone is like Jagai and Madai. Pleased to meet you. What's your name? Is it Madai or Jagai? Yeah. I went to Woodstock in Poland, and I saw them walking in. One had a crown made of a cardboard box with beer bottles upside down in it, stuck around his head. The other one had beer tins tied into his dreadlocks. And it's like, and they came in. I wanted to sign them up for the movie. I thought, these guys, right? They're perfect. I mean, really. I mean, they got to play the part. But then a little later, I saw them with a plate of prasadam, and they were tasting the papadam. Both of them, here, take a bite. I said, Jagai Madai are okay. Don't worry. There is prasadam. There is Sankirtan, there is the holy name. So Prabhupada has reached out to all the Jagais and Madais and made a whole movement of Jagais and Madais. Right? It's very interesting is that Satsvarup Maharaj, he writes how Lord Ramachandra went to Lanka with an army of monkeys. And then he writes, but Prabhupada had to do it with hippies from the Lower East Side. That sort of puts it all in perspective, right? Dvipada pasu, two-legged animals. Say pasu baradurachar. Those animals, they grossly misbehave. Grossly misbehave. That's, tell me all about it. We read in the Nectar of Devotion, we read that generally a devotee is taking up spiritual life in a continuation of service done of a previous life. And in this way, devotional service continues over many lives. But then, what about those who don't have those credits? In the Chaitanya Chandramrita, it is described that even those who have never served a Vaishnava, even those who have never heard the transcendental message from the scriptures, even those who've never bowed down before the deity of the Lord, even those who've never went to a place of pilgrimage, even those, they will now dance in the greatest ecstasy. And Prabhupada made it happen. As Prabhupada said, I have created your pious credits. We didn't have any from last life. What to do? It wasn't meant to be. Krishna consciousness, for us, it wasn't destined. But Prabhupada, the faithful servant of Lord Nityananda, carried that mercy of Lord Nityananda. And it touched us. It touched us. Most of us didn't just embrace it. Most of us didn't really want it. Me, I definitely didn't want it. I said, like, no way. No. I thought these Hare Krishnas, I saw them on Dam Square in Amsterdam. And I saw the kirtan, saw them jumping up and down. I thought, religious fanaticism to the hilt. I thought it never ever before on this planet has such a degree of religious fanaticism existed. And I looked at it like, whoa, watch out. Yes, no, I wasn't ready. But Nityananda arranged it that, when it wasn't the devotees, then I went into the material side of life, and there was a girl, but the girl had a dog, and the dog's name was Krishna. And so the mercy was there. And that dog, I had to go out with the dog at night, somehow or other that was, the roles were divided, and that was mine. And I was out at night with that dog, and the dog didn't want to come back. So then I was calling out very loud, Krishna! So I was doing Harinam every night around the block. See the mercy of Lord Nityananda. This is not my story. This is the story of Lord Nityananda. Against my will, right? It came anyway. It infiltrated. I didn't ask for it. I tried to avoid it. But there was just no avoiding. The mercy of Lord Nityananda just reached me anyway. And had an effect. So we all came. We all came because of the mercy of Lord Nityananda, which came somehow or other. We all came. But that's not all. It's not that we get the mercy of Lord Nityananda once and then we are here. Right? And now we're sitting high and dry in Krishna consciousness. No, the mercy of Lord Nityananda is an ongoing thing. We depend on it right now. If it would depend on the quality of our rounds, good luck. Chant your rounds every day, and at the end of your life, thou shalt be judged by the quality of their rounds, and of thy rounds, and then it will be decided whether thou can enter into the spiritual realm. Okay. Next. Next. No hope. No hope. Absolutely no hope. No. It is therefore that mercy of Lord Nityananda is needed now, every step of the way. It's added every step of the way to whatever we do. And that is is how it all goes on, in the mercy of his representatives, of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's followers, somehow or other. So Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. And when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Lord Chaitanya went to, was sent by his mother to Jagannath Puri. Then he sent Nityananda back to Bengal. First, Nityananda didn't want to go, but Lord Chaitanya ordered him. And so when Lord Nityananda went, he assembled a group to go with him, and it was a long journey because they went by foot from Jagannath Puri to Bengal. And the reason why it was a very long journey was because they were having kirtan the whole way. And that kirtan was so ecstatic that every once in a while, or rather all the time, they missed the turns. So they'd go like, at one point someone said, "Are you sure this is the way to Navadvip?" "Well, let's ask somebody." Said, "Oh, no, that is behind, 10 kilometers back. Right, is the turn." And they walked 10 kilometers back, but then they forgot to turn again, walked 5 kilometers too far. So it took a while before they made the turn. And sometimes one of the associates would just go into ecstasy and stand in a form of Krishna for 9 hours, it says. 9 hours. And they would just stay in that spot and have ecstatic kirtan for 9 hours. So it was quite a party that approached Navadvip. Now I want to backtrack a little bit after this sort of sweet opening. We have to also go to a little bit of one moment, so a little further. A little bit about the tattva of Lord Nityananda. Now, the Chaitanya Charitamrita in chapter 5 has dedicated a whole chapter to Lord Nityananda. And there it is explained that Lord Nityananda is Balaram, and he's expanding. This chapter is called The Glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. So Lord Nityananda is Balaram. Balaram expands himself into different forms, and he expands him. Then in the Chaturvyuha, when you get these 4 forms, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, then Balaram is Sankarshan. So then from Sankarshan, all these other forms manifest. That's how it works. So when you hear about the Chaturvyuha, from Vasudeva comes Sankarshan, from Krishna comes Balaram. Then from Balaram expand all the other forms. So Sankarshan expands from Balaram. From Sankarshan then expand the form of Mahavishnu. And from Mahavishnu comes Garbhadaksaya Vishnu, Ksiradaksaya Vishnu, so the Purusha avatars. So in this way Balaram expands, right? Then Balaram is also expanding himself, as Ananta says. He has the multiple hoods. And here is a beautiful verse, which I like, from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Sahasra Vadana Vandan Prabhu Balaram Yahar Sahasra Mukha Krishna Yasodam. This Krishna Yasodam. We know that the Dham is the abode. Right? The Dham is the abode. And Yaso is fame. And Krishna is Krishna. Krishna Yaso Dham then means the abode of the fame of Krishna, or the glory of Krishna. And that are the Sahasra Mukha, the thousands of mouths of Lord Ananta. So, in this way, it is said, therefore, if one wants to chant, if one wants to glorify, one prays to Lord Ananta, because his mouth is the jewel case of glorification. Baladev Vijayabhusan gets into it in his introduction to his Bhagavad Gita. It is the jewel case. Right? And there is the jewel of the glorification. If you want to glorify, if you want to chant, that's what it means. That's what chanting is, glorification. We need the mercy of Lord Ananta, Lord Nityananda. So, therefore, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda, and then Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Otherwise, it is not going to. Otherwise, it's not going to be so easy. We need that blessing, and we need that mercy, that forgiveness for offenses, and then very quickly we can become blissful. An important point in Chaitanya Charitamrita is that it says that Lord Nityananda is Nitya Ananda. He is always blissful. And he's always blissful because he's engaged in the service of Lord Chaitanya. And this service to Lord Chaitanya is, as we know, devotional service is susukam kirtamaviyam. It is joyfully performed. So this service to Lord Chaitanya is so much joyfully performed. It is so blissful that Lord Nityananda becomes intoxicated by it. And in fact, he is so intoxicated, he's drunk. He's drunk. And because he's drunk, he cannot see who is qualified and who is not qualified. Therefore, whenever it moves, he gives the mercy. Therefore, Nityananda gives the mercy to anyone, qualified or not qualified. Yes, he gives. No prior qualification required. Just somehow or other, get in touch with the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Yes, well, it rings a bell, I guess. It hits home because no prior qualification required. Ha ha ha. Yes, that makes sense. Yes. And so we can see that the mercy of Lord Nityananda is what sustains us. And finally, Lord Nityananda is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord. Not only is he serving the Lord in the material world, in the form of Mahavishnu, in the form of the Purusha avatars. Not only is he becoming the bed, the shoes, the plate, even the musical instruments, Balaram Mridanga. Prabhupada wanted the devotees to make Mridanga, Balaram Mridanga. Oh yes, it was Balaram Mridanga. That's why the kartals cannot be put on the ground, ever. And if they are found on the ground, it must be touched to the head, because it's Balaram. Yeah, nowadays, that's not always remembered. You see them lying around. Sacrilege. But ignorance is bliss. But it doesn't. But then, anyway, if we pick them up from the floor after and we start playing, then all that also is gone, because Lord Nityananda is ready to accept. And we see how this movement spread. Think of Jayananda, who was building his Rath cart and who was just there alone with the wood and everything, and who's just picked up people from the street. And he just made them work. And then some of them would say, oh, I have to have a smoke. I have to have a smoke. Then Jayananda would say, okay, go outside, have your smoke. They'd come back, wash your hands, wash your mouth, right? And carry on. And somehow or other, he engaged them. Right? He just engaged them and built his Rath cars and transformed them. And that is the spirit of Lord Nityananda. To accept anyone and everyone. And Prabhupada took that spirit, cent percent, and just went to the Western world, and he dealt with the hippies. He dealt with the hippies on the Lower East Side, on Haight-Ashbury, on Amsterdam, in the Vondel Park, right? And in all these places, they were totally intoxicated. In America has its first lady, and ISKCON also has its first lady, right? And the first lady of ISKCON, when she met Prabhupada, she was on LSD. And Prabhupada said, do you live nearby? Then you can come every day. And because she was floating on some clouds, she said, oh, yes, I am very near. Prabhupada said, oh, very good. Then you can come every day. But she lived actually quite far away, an hour away or more on the train. But she came every day. And Prabhupada engaged her in painting. Yes, we hear how Prabhupada was in his apartment. We hear that there was one girl. I'm not picking on the girls, it just come. It's just, I'm now, in my brain there is a girl box, I guess. And now that I start with the first lady, now comes the other girl story to mind, right? That there was, Prabhupada was translating in the middle of the night, really, and or very early morning, and one girl came, and she also was clearly on drugs, and she stood in front of his door and called out really loud, Bahula! Very loud, huh? And Prabhupada looked at it, and then she just walked into the apartment. And a sannyasi cannot be alone with a lady in the place. So since she came in, and by sort of forced her way in, he went out. And then she locked the door. And Prabhupada was locked out of his apartment. Anyway, Brahmananda had to fix that, you know. He could fix things. That was no problem. Yes, Srila Prabhupada. Like that professor on Hinduism, right? And so the professor came on, and professor in Hinduism. So Prabhupada asked him, what is Hinduism? And the professor said, well, that is hard to say. That is hard to say. And Prabhupada said, he's a professor of Hinduism, but he can't say what is Hinduism. He said, here's my disciple. He's also a PhD. Sarup Damodar, what do you call that? Cheating, Srila Prabhupada. Within moments, they had this big argument, screaming, the professor and Prabhupada. Then Brahmananda came and said, you'd better leave before you make more offenses. The professor looked at Brahmananda up and down and also with, and realized, okay, I'd better leave. Amazing, what a movement. The early days of the movement resemble the time of Lord Nityananda, who was preaching in Bengal. We see when Lord Nityananda was preaching in Bengal, his main preaching was through kirtan. And we know that he stayed in that Panihati area for about 3 months. And that he just at the time connected with this person who was from a Suvarna Varnik family, that means a family of goldsmiths named Udaran Datta. And Udaran Datta became a disciple of Nityananda, and he supplied him with many jewels and gold. And then Nityananda was dressing up in silk and blue silk and started to decorate himself. And some brahmanas were saying, "What is this? I mean, isn't he in the renounced order?" Some said, "We don't know what his ashram is, or we have never seen him actually in the dress of a sannyasi. Is he a sannyasi, or what is he really? I mean, we don't know, but how can he dress like this? This is not befitting." But Lord Nityananda was dressing like Lord Balaram, jewels everywhere. And yes, during this period, there were the most ecstatic kirtan, and kirtan conquered Bengal, and all of Bengal, just all kinds of people were taking up in this kirtan. We see that there were dervishes. Dervishes are mystic Muslims who somehow or other became followers of Nityananda, and there were all kinds of followers of Nityananda, and Nityananda didn't preach regulative principles or nothing, so all kinds of things. And some Buddhist tantra came in, and this came in, and the Ols and the Bowls, and who were chanting but not following regulative principles, and all that was there. And Nityananda's movement was spread wide, but within it there were many wild people who were really not like exactly following. Meanwhile, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had sent Rupa and Sanatan to Vrindavan. And they began the whole development in Vrindavan. And there, for the first time, they established places of worship. They established temples. They established scriptures. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako. They established the Saddharma based on scriptures, evidence from scriptures, establishing the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Jiva Goswami ordered, after he was the youngest, so after the others had disappeared, then he sent Narottam, he sent Srinivas, he sent Shamananda to Bengal, and they went through so many adventures, which I will not describe now, but they brought these books of the Goswamis to Bengal. And what had happened before, earlier, they had brought Janavamata. Jiva Goswami had arranged that Janavamata was meeting with Rupa Goswami. And she heard Rupa Goswami explain his books. She heard directly Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I know some of you are studying now Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And she heard directly Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu from Rupa Goswami. And then, after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after 1533, there was in Kaituri, there was the first Korpunim festival. And there they brought, Shamananda brought from Orissa, Narottam brought from Kaituri himself, and Srinivas brought also many copies of the manuscripts. And anybody who came to the festival, there were ecstatic kirtans, and in that kirtan, the whole Panchatattva manifest, and people, and then they disappeared, and people cried, and the earth turned into mud. And then what happened was everyone got a copy of the books of the Goswamis. And Janavamata was there to say yes. She was the senior most, the wife of Nityananda. She was the Mahant. She was presiding over the whole assembly, and she said, yes, these books are bona fide. And everyone said, oh, these are bona fide. Yes. And then everyone got a copy of these books. And nowadays, still in the Royal Asiatic Society in Calcutta, they have thousands of manuscripts from that Kaituri period which have been found, right? And which they are keeping. right? Widely distributed, the books of the Goswamis. And so the movement got its shape, right? With the kirtan, through the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and through the literature of the Goswamis combined. And so we also, and that lived up to the day of today, because then, you get that whole period when after Nityananda and so on, and after Lord Chaitanya disappeared, you get that whole period of so many sahajas, so many groups that are off. After Nityananda, Virabhadra tried to cut out some of the sahajas and weed out the movement of Lord Chaitanya and of Lord Nityananda in Bengal. But anyway, eventually so many sahaja groups came to the foreground, taking it cheap and bringing in Buddhist tantra and saying sexual activity in the name of spirituality, and so on and so on. And it was wild what was going on in Bengal. Wild, in the name of Lord Chaitanya. Of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, with him begins the revival. And then comes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, a transcendental karate philosopher who just came in and chopped everything and just established Siddhanta, and who could stand up to him, a walking encyclopedia who knocked anybody over. And they grumbled behind his back, but they could never do anything in front of him. He would smash them. So, and then Prabhupada, who was humble and who, in his great humility, just took everything faithfully without adding his own. Prabhupada was just trying to present it as he heard it. That's very difficult. That requires a lot of humility. Everyone has a little bit of a twist, Well, a realization, call it that, yes, some insight, Well, that is Krishna gave me, I mean, what to do? He does sometimes, He's very merciful. Yes, yes. But Prabhupada was just so faithful. And here he is, the faithful servant of Lord Chaitanya, of Lord Nityananda, and of his spiritual master, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And now he gave everything again. He did it again, right? What had been done in Bengal, now he did. He gave the books of the Goswamis. He gave us Nectar of Devotion. Maybe I should read it. Yeah, maybe you should. Yeah. It's so valuable. It is so valuable. So he brought all these things, all the essence, condensed, gave it all to us. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And with all of that, right, with these four pillars, with these four main pillars among his books, he gave us the full Siddhanta, which Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Rupa Goswami had faithfully preserved the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And he brought that mercy to us. And so, although we are a whole movement of Jagais and Madhais, somehow or other, we got the same thing. We got the same thing that the immediate associates of Lord Chaitanya got. You read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, thousands of devotees assembling, discussing the Chaitanya Bhagavat, hearing about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and we got it all. We got the same thing, the same mercy of Lord Nityananda. But there is one difference. There is one difference. And that is that since Lord Nityananda, there are many generations of great pure devotees. And all these pure devotees have prayed for us. Rupa Goswami, the 6 Goswamis, they prayed. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami prayed for our deliverance. Narottam Das Thakur prayed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prayed. Jagannadas Babaji jumped out of the basket and prayed. When the birth site was found, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed. Bhaktisiddhanta prayed. Prabhupada prayed. All for us. So we got the mercy of Lord Nityananda, plus all these added prayers. So we got even more. We got even more than the associates, the direct associates of Lord Nityananda. We got all these added prayers. Isn't that amazing? So how amazing is the mercy of Lord Nityananda? And how fortunate is anyone who comes in touch with this movement? I mean, I got the mercy through a dog, and then the dog got again the mercy through me, because I was chanting the name of the dog, right? Or anyone who chanted the name of the dog. So the dog also got purified. I don't know what destiny that dog has attained, but, could be one of us right now. Any questions? Any comments? Purna Tattva.
Sing just before you came, we sing a song, and in that song it is said Goda Nitai.
Koda Nitai. Koda.
Goda, yeah. And before I heard the song for the first time, I was thinking about Goda Nitai.
Yeah.
But later but what does it mean?
Koda means the broker. Yeah, Koda Nitai, the broker Nitai. The song is also called The Broker. Koda Nitai means he's the broker in the marketplace of the holy name. Yodinam kin bemai, amr sanga chalo mahajanir kachajai. If you want to buy the name, come. Now, to Mahajan. Yes, I'll take you there, to Nityananda Mahajan. He's the broker. Surabhi Kunjate Namata Kurachi.
The same song which we're singing, it's also said that Lord Nityananda gives the pure holy name, which is distributing it freely.
Yeah.
The only price is faith.
Yeah, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written a wonderful book about that called the Kalyana Kalpataru Kalpatavi, right? And it's like, it describes the Namahata. He describes the whole Namahata. And it's like, I'll give it to your husband. And there you see the whole description of the whole Namahata that Lord Nityananda opened in Godrum, and that there are different caretakers in the Namahata, different positions. And Bhaktivinoda describes all the positions, there's a storekeeper, there are shop owners, there's the wholesale market, which Nityananda controls, and then there are people who keep the records, and it gets very technical, all the positions, etc. And finally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself is the sweeper in the marketplace. He's the sweeper. But it's very nice. We used to read it on Sankirtan, with Prema Rup, I used to read this. The whole marathon, we were reading this book, and it was really nice. It kept us going.
So what about this faith?
Sraddha Bindu, yeah, you have to have a drop of faith. You'll get it from those who have faith. Therefore, somehow or other we need the association of a devotee. And whoever we are with, we develop those qualities. So, when we are with someone who has faith, we will also get faith. And of course, the deeper someone's faith, the more we can get. In the Chaitanya Siksamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that someone who has ruchi can give shraddha. Someone who has bhav can give ruchi. And someone who has prem can lift somebody up all the way. But it makes sense that someone who has taste, can give some faith. Because when we see taste, and the amazing thing is that you get taste on day one, right? Maybe we don't get full-fledged to the stage of matured ruchi, but we get a drop of ruchi. And you see it, these devotees, they have taste. It all operates on taste, and that's the magic. And there is taste in the kirtan, taste in prasadam, taste in the beautiful deities. Look at that darsha. I mean, it is beautiful. Beautiful backdrop, really matches. Wonderful.
What is it what? We're all here, but
What is it what?
we're all here, but our family members are not. I'm sure everybody would like to that family members will be present. What is it that blocks us or them for the mercy?
What is it that blocks our family members from this mercy? Well, in many cases, family members also come. It's not that no family members come. I mean, I know many families who have like 4 generations of initiated devotees, right? Travel around the world. I know such families. That's one thing. So there are, I think even in Radhadesh we have a few, at least 3, right, generations. And but Prabhupada would say that he said a magnet attracts iron, right? He said, but when iron is rusted, then the magnet doesn't attract so easily. Therefore, older people, they're more rusted by having been in the material world for a long time. So they don't get so quickly attracted by the power of the magnet. But younger people, they get more easily attracted. Therefore, first go for the younger family members. James Bond. James Bond. Put some Maha water in the juice. Back to James. Yeah. Just speak if I don't see you, because I don't see so far.
You mentioned that Lord Nityananda was more merciful than Lord Chaitanya because Lord Chaitanya wanted to kill after Madai had heard Lord Nityananda. But I was wondering, how would Lord Nityananda have reacted if instead Lord Chaitanya would have tried to give them mercy and they would have heard him?
You have to ask Lord Nityananda. When you see him, ask him and let me know what he said. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, yes.
What is the meaning of Trayodashi?
Trayodashi is the 13th day. So we count from the moon, right? And Ekadasi is the 11th day. Then yesterday was Varaha Dwadasi, that was the 12th day. And today is Trayodashi, the 13th day. Then we get the 14th day, Chaturdasi, like that. It's just the number of the day, Trayodashi. Yeah, I hear who?
We hear a lot about the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and we know that Lord Nityananda was born in Ekachakra ground. Lord Nityananda, and
Yeah.
then he left the Ekachakra ground. And I was just wondering what happened with all the residents of Ekachakra, because we know that Lord Chaitanya, they all visited still later
that we don't find described. Of course, we hear a lot about Lord Nityananda's pastimes. In Chaitanya Bhagavat describes how Nityananda was acting out all the pastimes of Krishna, right? And of Lord Ramachandra, and how did he know all that? We remember how on one occasion he played the part of Lakshman and he was shot by Indrajit, and he had told the boy, when I fall to the ground, go and get that healing herb. But when he fell to the ground, everyone stopped playing, the adults came, everyone looked, what happened? Anyway, but then they went through the whole story, and then finally someone said, we need a healing herb. Then the boy who played Hanuman said, yes, he told us. Then he went to get, Nityananda came to his senses. So we see these pastimes. We see Harai Oja, his father, being completely attached to Nityananda, and just is like, we see how the sannyasi came, and how this sannyasi came, and how the sannyasi came, and Harai Oja was such a wonderful Vaishnava, such a wonderful Brahmana. He was so happy that a sannyasi came to his home, and the sannyasi came and asked for some charity, and Harai said, yes, whatever you desire. And the sannyasi said, I want your son. And Harai was thinking, no! Even louder than that. I didn't want to go all out, because I have a loud voice. And then, but he couldn't say it. He said, no, I will not give him. I will not give him. But how can I not give him? Because then I am not doing what a father should do in teaching my son that whatever a sannyasi asks must be given. Oh, no, I will not give him. And then he heard himself say yes. And he says, why am I saying yes? And the sannyasi just took Nityananda very quickly. He didn't wait at all, didn't wait a second, just said, okay, yep, come you boy, let's go. And they left right away. And it says in Chaitanya Bhagavat that Harai Oja went pagal. He went pagal, he went crazy. He went crazy, and he died also. Ekachakra is, of course, a dham. It is a holy dham. So the residents are in the holy dham. So whoever dies in that dham all goes back to Godhead. Somehow or other we find in some scriptures which, or in some biographies which historically are sometimes questioned, but we find descriptions that actually Nityananda had a younger brother, and that the younger brother was called Bankim Rai. And that Bankim Rai, he was one day supposed to clear a field together with a whole group of people from weeds. And then they said that, Bankim said that, oh, it's lunchtime now, why don't we take a break and you take lunch. So, but I'm not so hungry, so I'll stay here a bit and I'll prepare a bit for the work, and then when you come back from lunch, we'll all start again. So everyone was hungry, so they agreed, yes, lunch, let's do it. So they went, and then when they came back, then there was a huge pile of wheats and the whole field was done, and Bankim Roy had disappeared. And then within days, a deity came floating down the river, and Nityananda pulled out that deity, and that is supposed to be Bankim Roy. And so the deity is known as Bankim Rai and worshipped. So Ekachakra is full of amazing stories, and the residents are always absorbed in remembering Lord Nityananda and the pastimes of Lord Nityananda. Whether he met them again, I have no record of that. But they're absorbed, totally absorbed. And if you leave your body there, back to Godhead. So it's a dham. It's an eternal dham from where one goes back to Godhead if we leave the body. Okay, you're the last. I'm getting tired.
Just at the end, you said that in Ekachakra,
Say that again.
that the residents, they remember Lord Nityananda
Yeah, how is it practically possible? It depends what your practical needs are. See, we are like people who had many material needs. And, like for example, okay, we want, many of us got married, me too. And then, you want, then you need so many things and all this, right? And then you have a house and a mouse and yeah, every house has a mouse. and bills and whatever, right? So then you have so many things. And then how is it practically possible? But if you look at Madhavendra Puri, he found a way. Madhavendra Puri was just going to spend all his time simply remembering. And he even didn't stop to beg for food. Forget it. He said, if something comes, I'll eat. If nothing comes, then I won't eat. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to be 24 hours absorbed. 6 Goswamis forgot to sleep, forgot to eat. Haridas Thakur. So they practically did it. But because we got practically more entangled, it is practically a little more difficult for us. But do the best you can. At least you got a phone and you can, or an iPad, and you can listen to things there. And in this way. Or you can distribute books. That's the mercy of Lord Nityananda, right there. So there are ways. And you already found some interesting ways. So may our remembrance of Lord Nityananda increase, not only on this day, but throughout. And may somehow or other this life become successful, that we may take advantage of His mercy and of His representatives and go back to Godhead. And while we are here, may we really do something to pass on the mercy to others, because that's the only way to really get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Thank you very much. Shri Shri Nityananda Ram ki jai. Shri Shri Nityananda Trayodashi Mahamahotsava ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Ja, die hebben we allemaal. Ja, precies.
Ik heb er 12